Hello, Coach Red here. I am an instructor with Redirecting Children's Behavior, and I talk about helping parents and co-parents get through divorce as well as other situations without too much collateral damage with the children. So we want to encourage children to be healthy and open and honest and be able to talk throughout the entire process. That's what I do. And I'm here with Carolyn DeBolt, and she is Caroline from Declutter Your Life with Caroline, where she helps people get through physically and mentally, helping them move forward in any situation that they need to because she declutters their life. So she also talks about parental alienation, and that's going to be our primary on today's video. So Caroline, hello.
Hi, Rochelle. How are you?
I'm perfect.
Good, me too.
It's a perfect day.
Perfect. Yes.
So tell me a little bit about what you do.
Well, in regards to the decluttering, or
yeah, just give us a quick little elevator speech on that.
Okay. Really what I do with decluttering is, for me, in assisting others to move forward with their lives, decluttering is more or less a tangible thing that people can use to release and let go of things that no longer serve them.
Okay.
And that affects the mind, and the mind affects our external environment. And it all kind of works together. So it's just a good form and format of doing this.
Yeah, it kind of makes me think about people letting go of anger and revenge in divorce and with parental alienation. So that's very interesting how you tie those two things together.
Yeah.
So what is parental alienation? We're throwing that term around like we know what we're talking about. So why don't you share with everybody else what we're talking about?
Okay. Well, so parental alienation in itself is a trauma, and it's come about by a man named Dr. Childress, who is a mental health practitioner. And I'm pulling this information. I'm just going to read a definition for you, basically, about what it's about. But there's from a man named Edward Kruk, who wrote an article in Psychology Today, as well as kind of tagging on the tail of Oprah, who recently has done a 60-minute interview relating to children and trauma in this country and in the world. And it's very interesting. It's only a 7-minute interview, but very, very interesting where she's going with this. But so having said that, I'm going to read this definition real quick. It's, according to the work of Dr. Craig Childress, parental alienation is first and foremost an attachment-based trauma. Attachment-based parental alienation is essentially a role reversal of a normal, healthy parent-child relationship. Instead of serving as a regulatory other, which involves providing stability and meeting the child's emotional and psychological needs, alienating parents or custodial parents use their children to meet their own needs, violating boundaries and seriously compromising and damaging the child's healthy development. Enduring the experience of parental alienation is also a profound form of psychological trauma experienced by targeted parents. It is both acute and chronic and externally inflicted. It is thus a type of domestic violence directed at the target parent. The fact that children witness such abuse of a parent also makes alienation a form of child abuse. This is perhaps the principal source of anxiety for the alienated parents who witness the abuse of their children and are prevented from protecting them. The psychological trauma of alienated parents differs from what groups like combat veterans face when they develop PTSD, yet experience of the targeted parents is a form of trauma as debilitating as any other. Although not all parents who are victims of parental alienation experience trauma, as the same event that plunges one parent into trauma may not do so with another, those who are closely attached to their children and were actively involved in their lives most certainly do. And I don't want to leave out the grandparents or other family members of this situation, because it affects them deeply as well. And as a non-custodial mom who went through it for almost, 19 years at this point with my own children, I can't even, it's indescribable what it really feels like. It's just so deep and so painful to go through something like this for the parent that loves the child.
Right.
So,
and how does it affect the child?
Before
I even let you answer that,
okay.
You reunited with your children when they were in their 20s on some level. I know with your daughter it's not 100%, but you've kind of had some kind of communication with your children in their 20s. So how did it affect them?
Well, in my mind, as a normal act of growing up for children, they are going to side with the parent that they live with because it's just, it's almost like, oh my goodness, I can't think of the name of the phrase.
Well, they need them. They need them for shelter and food.
Exactly.
And they depend on them. So
yes.
they side with them because if they don't, then they don't feel safe.
Exactly. And it's almost like even with a situation where a child is being abused and somebody comes to get the child and take it away from the parent that's abusing them, the child will still cling to that parent.
Because the child needs to feel like they belong. And they feel like they belong with the parent that's feeding them and taking care of them.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you for that. God, I got tripped up on that one.
Here.
Yeah, and also, they get in that place, and then due to normal growth processes of the mind, especially between the ages of 0 and 6 with children, they learn everything, and the trauma, and any trauma that happens in that time frame locks into their system, in their mind and their body. Yeah. And it becomes, to me, the way I see it is it almost becomes an act of self-preservation. Sure. That they've been trained not to want anything to do with that parent. So even as an adult, there may still be some underlying fear of connecting with the other parent. So for me right now, I have a wonderful relationship with my son. He's 29 now, and we have connected through personal development and just growth, and it's just been an amazing journey with him. And my daughter, who is 23, she and I basically are texting each other. She's busy in her life. She just graduated from college and just became a teacher in the last few months. So she's busy, and I give her space, but every Sunday religiously for, I don't even know how long it's been, I will text her, tell her how much I love her, tell her that I miss, I don't even go into missing her because I don't want that to be placed on her, but find out how she's doing, and it's always about her. So, and we have spoken on the phone a few times, so that's a step in the right direction for sure.
Yeah. And I want to interject here that studies have shown, and I know for you this isn't yet an option with her, but studies have shown that 2 seconds of eye contact will stimulate oxytocin and serotonin, the relationship hormones within our bodies. So if you give 2 seconds of eye contact, that's all you need to start that connection. I want to put that out there for when you get off of texting.
Yes. And I get that, because even just looking into anyone's eyes, it's just an amazing, amazing thing.
But I know that when the child hasn't been in your life, and at this point she's an adult and she hasn't been in your life in all this time, and you tried to deeply look into her eyes for 2 minutes, I think that would be a little disturbing for her. For you, we haven't. Like, oh my God, these are my baby's eyes.
Right, and that's where the fear for her comes up, because she doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know what to expect. She doesn't understand. And I have seen her face to face, but that was a few years ago. And she wouldn't look in my eyes, really, when we met up. She would, it was like this brief, and I just let her have her space. It's the best I could do.
Yeah. And so from what I'm hearing, you're talking about more when you do have contact with her, then you're spending time asking about her, talking about her, and less about you. And I think that's an interesting distinction to make, because the other parent really does make it all about them and how they feel. They're not necessarily doing that consciously. That's part of their trauma from their childhood as well.
Yes.
It's important for me as a human being, as a coach, to empathize with every person. And sometimes it's really hard when you know that that person's abusing the child, but it makes it a little easier when we humanize that parent and say, you know what? They're doing it because of their trauma. Doesn't make it any easier, but that's all. I just put it out there. They're doing it from their trauma, and this is how they've managed to survive and cope.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you do get contact with your child, make it about them. Ask them about their day. Ask them open-ended questions.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you think about just having silence on the phone? Like if you're contacting your daughter, for example, maybe when they're teenagers and they don't want to talk, but they're willing to just sit on the phone with you for a short period of time. What do you think of that?
Actually, now that you're asking me that question, that kind of brings something up for me, and it's I just had my own aha healing moment when you said that, because when I have been on the phone or calling on the phone and she doesn't answer, that's one thing. But being on the phone and there being silence, it's almost like you're still in that energetic space with your child. So it's okay. It's not like you don't have to fill in the gaps with words, because words sometimes don't even matter. It's the energy, the love you put out, the love you send through the ethers, I guess is the best way to put that. And you know what? That's actually something that's huge. It's important to understand that it's not about telling the child, what you're trying to do and who you're trying to be. They don't need to know any of that stuff. My son said to me one time while we were going through this process, he was like, if we had been together this entire time, I don't think we would have had as good a relationship as we do now. And sometimes I just like to be with you. I don't need to hear about anything unless it's good. I don't like to hear all that stuff, because it literally puts a hindrance on that child's growth and healing when you're telling them about your stuff.
Yes.
And it's not necessary to tell them. You can tell them a few things, or if they ask you for sure, sometimes I'll tell my daughter, there's something that's in common with what they did. Relatable. Something relatable is really, really important, I think. But silence, absolutely. I agree with that 1,000%.
Yeah.